Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Mike and then hand off the mic to him. That was not intended. Today, we've got Mike Altieri with us. He's led tech teams for over 25 years at companies like Sompo, Xplor, and AmerisourceBergen. And my apologies if I mispronounced any of them. He's passionate about helping teams reach their full potential. And I think it also has something to do with outside of work, he loves building things. So I'm thinking like building teams is also coming from there. So software, teams, platforms, relationships, yeah, relationships, mountain bikes. He's recovering from a recent accident. Lego, basically, if it can be built, Mike's probably into it. And with that, Mike, over to you.
Thank you. Thanks, man, and thanks for the intro, and appreciate you and Tintosh for hosting these lightning talks and fostering the community here. So, hello everyone, and thanks for joining. As per the intro, I'm Mike, and like many of you here, I'm a fractional CTO. So I help startups and growth companies bring in just enough technology leadership without having to pay the big bucks, although some of us would still like that. So, so for a large part of my career, about 25 years, I've had the chance to lead large enterprise technology teams and more recently shifted gears and focusing on the startups, as I've said. I've learned this, enterprises and startups are super different worlds. I know I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but that difference in scale, process, compliance, multiple layers of people, safety nets. All right, startups have speed and agility and very few resources. So here's the challenge, right? How do you take these enterprise practices that are valuable at any scale, but make sure you don't choke the startup and grind it to a halt? So my goal today is to, help us see the difference and talk through that a bit at the end. So as I said, different worlds, common challenges. So enterprises are great at being reactive systems. They've got layers of people, safety nets, and things in place to absorb shock and keep the train moving. Startups just plain don't have that luxury. With only a handful of people, they really have to be proactive and not reactive. That means putting just enough discipline in place, whether through automation like DevOps or lightweight agile, to really keep things moving forward without burning the team and make that space to be proactive. Um, so there's three lessons here that startups often love to skip. So tempting, right? There's only two people. Why do I need to write down my architecture? I know it. The other guy knows it. That's good enough. Security. Wow, we only have three users. Why do we even need to bother to worry about, making things secure? Oh, metrics. Who needs those? And we just need to keep watch on our bank account. But I implore you, don't skip them. And when it comes to architectural discipline, it doesn't have to be perfect. So that little info and image on the left there is misspelled. That's okay. But the existence of the document is what matters, right? You don't need to show it off to thousands of people and make sure that an entire organization is on board. But you do have to be ready to show it to some investors. You do have to be ready to show it to an expanding team as you start to build speed, momentum, and scale out. So make sure that you adapt, right? Keep it simple, keep those documents there, but please don't skip them. When it comes to security, do it from day one, right? Even if you only have a handful of customers, their information is really important. They are your core customers, and you want to grow them. Make sure that the founders know what the words what PII stands for. And that while they may not have to abide by laws across the globe and are only operating in a handful of locations, make sure that they're aware should they have a rocket ship take off on them and be ready for it. So don't skip it, but do just enough. I'm going to dive into two other scenarios where I'm going to spend a little bit more time and talk about some tools and things again that I implore. Please don't skip, right? So first one, DevOps, right? In an enterprise world, you usually have at least two, if not three or four non-prod environments. You have heavy compliance you have to deal with. You usually have teams of people to take care of your DevOps. Um, again, as a startup, you're really, really tempted to skip this. Oh, it only takes me, 10 minutes to build and deploy. Oh, there's only two of us, right? There's only three of us. But those things can be easily automated, and especially in a SaaS-based startup, or similar startups that rely heavily on software creation, that's your number one asset. Make sure it's in source control. Make sure that you can get rapid builds out, and you're putting those in front of your core audience, whether that be your founding partner or whether that be a few beta testers. Getting that in the hands of the users matters, and it allows you to be proactive. Don't go crazy selecting tools. Keep it simple. Use what you know. If the team is comfortable with GitHub Actions, and the like, use it. If they prefer GitLab, go forward. Doesn't matter. Don't over-engineer. That's the trap that you need to avoid. But again, don't skip it, because it'll give you that cycle time that you really need. Um, Agile. Here's another area where, I've created this. It's a slightly fictional story with gems of truth to tell, to protect some founders, and as well as weave in some of my enterprise background. So the story goes like, I was working with a founder. They'd hired an offshore dev shop, and things seemed fine, right? They had an onshore PM who was able to talk to the founder regularly. He seemed to have comfort with him. Heard that this company was a good company to work with. Said they were making progress and everything's almost ready. Just one more day. Just one more day. Finally, 3 weeks in, the founder said, I need to see something. The demo was a disaster. Half the features didn't work. Bugs were everywhere. They burned, 3 weeks that startups don't have. Days, hours are precious. And that's the cost of being reactive. So by making a simple change, a lightweight agile rhythm, you don't need to have full-blown safe. We are still talking about a very small company. All right, just do some daily async check-ins. Get everybody on the team to get into free Slack channel and put in what's done, what's next, and especially the blockers, right? Plus one 30-minute weekly phone call. You don't have to worry about having a retro. You don't have to worry about having sprint planning. You don't have to worry about all these ceremonies, burn down charts, metrics that'll choke you. But don't skip it. So, by doing this simple change, within 2 weeks, right, completely changed the relationship, right? The founder was, the first 3 weeks was evaluating their options, how to break ties and move on. But by making this simple change, by introducing just a little bit of process, the founder got a lot more comfortable and was able to move forward. So again, pick tools that work for you, whether it's free Slack channel, free Jira, or if you're already using GitHub, they have a very nice lightweight tracking tool in there that's continuing to mature, but it's enough for startups. Um, so how do you decide? Uh, you can use very, very simple decision framework, right? Let's test this with two items, right? So heavy functional performance QA practices, making sure that you've got documented test cases, multiple runs prior to even letting it hit the QA server. Is this really going to make or break your business? Probably not. You do have beta users at the end of the day. You are going to still go through it as a founder before you release it to your users. You'll find the big bugs, and the little bugs you'll let the rest of them find. Does it accelerate delivery? It actually does the opposite. It slows you down, and delays feedback, and it is in and of itself heavy overhead. The other one, complex metrics dashboards. Let's do a quick test here, because in one of my prior enterprise experiences, we were required, each leader was required in about a ladder of 5 deep to have 10 to 12 monthly metrics. It drove the teams crazy. They spent so much time on it, and it was rarely used to do anything but reprimand, unfortunately. So does that reduce existential risk? No. Does it accelerate delivery feedback? Obviously not. And it is in and of itself heavy overheads, probably tools you don't have or can't afford as a startup. But again, don't skip it. Maybe one or two metrics, like how many signups do I have, right? Do I have more active users coming on? So, you know, closing thought here. I know Manon likes to keep these fast. It's 10 minutes. I think I might even be faster than that. But and leave some time for Q&A. So keep the wisdom, adapt the scale, take these lessons that create value, and set aside the bureaucracy. I know that's the fun part about a startup that I'm enjoying working with these founders very much lately these days. So um, that's it. I'll let you open up to questions, Aaron. And again, thank you all for joining.
Thank you so much, Mike. I am going to request you to, well, I'm going to let everyone take care of the email address for a minute, and I'm going to ask you to stop sharing screen so that everyone can see everyone else.
Sure. All right, I'll go ahead and do that.
And with that, I'm really hoping someone will disagree and say startups are really just looking for validation and they really don't have time for this till they cross a certain stage. But that's the question if no one else raises their hand. But we can raise our hands and it's easier just letting Zoom run the process. My question is the first question then. So startups are really looking for validation. So are we talking about startups that have crossed a certain stage of validation, perhaps? Or
Uh, Not necessarily. Perhaps that anecdote that had some gems of truth in there around the agile process. That startup that most influenced the story. They're at pre-seed, so they're still raising initial safe funding, and they haven't actually gone to get a full seed round in Series A, but they needed an app. They were a SaaS adjacent company. The app, without the app, they don't exist. And they had hired an offshore dev team, and um, they had no idea where the code was. They weren't very technical founders. And I'm excited to work with them because I can fix all these things for them rapidly, and they don't need a full-time CTO. They just need a few hours a week to help the guidance, keep their offshore dev team honest, and they're not at the place where they need to hire people. But without that app, they will fail.
that gives me an idea for the next creative, but I thought we could do a quick survey here. So all of these guys work with startups. How often do you feel they do what Mike is recommending? And I'm really genuinely just seeding this for an honest conversation. A part of me does agree with you, but for the sake of conversation, I will go to the part that doesn't agree with you.
Well, you do have to cut some corners. I'm not saying you do everything, but
We'll start with some.
don't cut every corner.
but how often are you like Will, Stewart, John, Sherwin, Naren? I'm just calling out people
I
who I met
Yeah,
for
I
coffee
can,
at least once. So
I
um,
can comment on this because I'm gonna kind of what I'm presenting tomorrow actually somewhat related. But the point is that I think what you said, Manan, is actually the foundation of a lot of mistakes to me as well. That yeah, startups looking for validation, but then we can't expect customers to forget about their priorities and focus on somebody else's challenges. I think that's a wrong expectation, but it's true that many startups are assuming that okay, I'm going to do this pre-pilot, which customer doesn't have a skin in the game, which they don't spend time on it, and then the outcome of that pilot is usually somewhat average or failure. Not because the product wasn't good, just because there was not enough focus and collaboration on the table. And also again the other thing is potentially in also a lot of scenarios there is actually a good alignment that there is you can define a win-win scenario, but to get to that point you have to collaboratively work together and speak their language as a startup. It's that burden is also on you as a startup rather than the other side because they're super busy and they don't have that time again. what I'm covering tomorrow is perceived risk and fear of unknown. In many scenarios, customers that are mid to large size, they actually get trapped in that perceived risk and fear of unknown because they don't truly understand how you add value to them, and that's even defining things before even starting.
Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah, I think my experience has been, especially with the non-technical founders, they jump in right away thinking we're going to build this and the customers will come. And I think one of the key elements I have found is pre-selling the idea to key stakeholders and architecting a solution that solves their problem specifically before you even build. And that way you have sort of buy-in and can understand the true pain points of what your target customer base will want, and you develop a product that really solves, those 1, 2, 3 customers, key beta users, and tailor the product to exactly their needs. I have found so many times that non-technical founders come up with an idea, they jump right into building, and in the end, you waste a lot of cycles in dev, pivoting, changing feature sets, arranging things in a totally different type of architecture. Because truly, a lot of these founders that I come across, they have an idea, but sometimes they don't even really know who their target customer base is. And so I think that's my recommendation in terms of approaching non-technical founders. Sometimes you come in and they've already started building, as Mike alluded to, and that's more typical than not, thinking they need to have an app or a website that shows off exactly what they can do, but they end up spending a lot more cycles and rework down the road.
Will, you and right after Will, I'm going to ask everyone for a picture. But sir, please, over to you.
Okay. And I think Renee was also unmuting, so you and I talked at the beginning, so I want to hear what Renee has to say. I'm going to let you talk.
Well,
Then we take a picture right after Renee.
Okay, just a quick question.
Yes, please.
I am not in the founder space, but having worked on product development and financial services, we've worked with a lot of startups and that to integrate their efforts into the larger platforms. And one of the things I noticed, Mike, on your early slide was don't build for 10x, not 100x. And the theme throughout all of your conversation was keep it simple, have structure, but keep it simple. And I'm assuming that's what it was. But also, when you've got a whole bunch of customers and you need a ton of capacity and speed of response and so forth, just curious where that 10x versus 100x was coming from.
I think it's just scale down I wouldn't call that a full-blown exact math. I'll call it slide math. But the point being is scale down. Don't go towards that massive size. Don't go so deep in your architecture that it'll scale infinitely. It's okay to just focus on the next few months rather than focus on the exit.
Thank you. So Will, yours, and then after that, it's all John's.
Answering the original question of, do we get pressure to skip these steps, or what are we actually seeing out there? I find that it goes one of two ways. Either I'm partnered with a founder who, and these projects always fail, by the way, there's really no putting it back on track, is the founder says, we don't need any of that. I know exactly what needs to be built, do exactly what I say, and it's all going to be great. Whenever you hear that project is going, that's $100,000 to $500,000 that's going to go right down the drain. There's nothing we can do about it. If middle road is sort of the founders that get it. Maybe they've been through this before, or they're open to coaching, and they're willing to do the sort of the precondition work to figure out whether or not we're even on the right track. And then they recognize that if we are on the right track, we have to have this much preparation for if it works. When it works, what are we going to do? Those projects tend to be quite successful. And a lot of times when I'm going into those projects, I'm showing up to a founder that already has full designs, LOIs in hand, like customers ready, signed up that want the thing. And then the question is, how do we efficiently give them the thing that we think that they want, and how do we learn from that? And if that's how they're approaching it, that has a high likelihood of success. Then there's sort of founder group 3, which is maybe they've worked at large corporations only. They've never seen a startup before. They have a lot of engineering experience, but they've never seen these processes scaled down, Mike, like you were saying. And so they're building from scratch, like they're operating under ISO 27001, and they actually have none of those restrictions. So they're burning a lot of cycles unnecessarily. Those are sort of the 3 patterns that I see. When you hit that balance correctly, I find that everybody winds up way more aligned. Mike, what you're talking about, it's not just about, having the technical foundation and checking those boxes. I'm really glad you put agile and sort of the base processes in there, because misalignment is the thing that kills most projects. It's like, if everybody's aligned, if you have the right rituals, if the right feedback is going to the right places, almost all of the rest of it, will fall into place one way or another. So I see this as an ongoing conversation with all of my clients. And the right balance is slightly different for most small companies, but I think what you've laid out, Mike, is right for 98% of what's out there.
Thank you.
John, please.
Yeah, I missed the first couple of minutes of this, but the focus on 10x versus 100x is certainly true. It's anything you spend doing not finding your first customer at the beginning is a mistake. You need to focus on saying, do we have product market fit? Is there something that's valuable here for somebody? And if I've literally had to fire people who have tried to build battleships that don't have the ability to steer, right? It's like, we have all this stuff and we have the self-discovery services platform. I'm like, no, what you have is no more paycheck, because we can't do this and you're fired, right? The best rules until you have your first customer is Lord of the Flies. There are no rules, right? You have to figure out how to get something built first. And what I usually tell people in the process of getting a business started is, you're going to have 3 complete rewrites of everything over the course of your business on the road to success. The very best I can do is eliminate one of them. Get your first customer, understand what you have to do, cut all the corners necessary to get somebody to say, I'm willing to write you a check for this or enter a credit card, and figure that out. And once you have that foundation, as somebody is willing to pay for this, at that point, you should start thinking about scale in very modest terms. And yes, 10x is where it is. Figure out how to get your first customer, do everything you can to survive to 10,000 customers. And then eventually you're going to have to figure out how to scale it to 1 million customers. I can skip one of those, and that's usually how I wind up getting a project with somebody and saying, I can get you a lot farther with the fewer rewrites to get you into production and into operation, and kind of go from there. But if you spend a lot of time overthinking it, all you're doing is literally spending hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, doing absolutely nothing of value to anybody.
Okay. Any last questions, comments, or else?
Yeah, John and
Yeah.
Mike, the question is, most companies don't think about a platform or bringing a platform as a product, and they scramble, right, a lot. I see that companies who are really successful, they've done the MVP, they're growing fast, but then they say they don't figure it out. It's loosely coupled, not loosely coupled is the right word, but they haven't built it to scale, and everything becomes harder. I've seen that from year 7 onwards. How do you coach the founders to think about having a platform mindset from the get-go? Not that it needs to be ISO 27000 or security or anything complex, but you have to grow. As you grow your product, your platform starts to slowly grow as well. And do you recommend that year 3, year 4? When do you recommend have a startup start to think about as a platform?
Oh, I think the best way to convince founders and I'll just call them decision makers is by telling failure stories. At one of my prior not so startup, but I'll call it late stage startup, they were like Series C, couple thousand people. You'll figure it out if you look at my LinkedIn profile. They reached a certain mass after I think year five-ish, and the system started to grind to a halt. Their enterprise customers were calling off the hook. I had to get on an airplane and go visit one of them and
Mhm.
shake hands and nod while my team was busy trying to make sure that the servers weren't crashing, and it was really because they they didn't do that last rewrite. They didn't do that last, push to scale when it was beyond 10x. And at that point, they had big, major companies that were, had tens of thousands of daily users. It started to crash and burn. Um, Luckily they recovered it, but not without losing a couple of key accounts. Um, you know, it's I think you tell those stories of bad and say, if you do this, you avoid that. And you could either choose to lose one of your top five accounts, which might mean, you know, thousands or millions of dollars, or you can invest, $500,000 now to make sure that doesn't happen.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Yeah.
I like to end things on time, so I'm hitting stop.